morning, Shalom, Boker Tov. Our second virtual tour in Israel. We are starting today very early in the morning. It's cold in the desert. We are near the mountain of Masada and we are going to climb the mountain. From the level of the Dead Sea, the lowest place in the world, to the top of the desert cliff of Masada, about 500 meters high. On the top of the mountain, we will meet the refuge place for King Herod, an amazing story, beautiful landscape. Let's go up to catch the sunrise. Let's go. Wonderful. We have made it. You can enjoy the sunrise just above the mountains of Moab in Jordan. And after that, let's talk about the story of Masada. We are in the Snake Pass Gate. Try to imagine, years ago, people walked in the desert for days to arrive to this place. Then they had to climb 500 meters and they come to the gate. But in the gate, they have to wait. Not everybody is going in, so they would sit on the benches over here. With a little bit of imagination, you can imagine it. And then only if they are allowed, they can go in. If not, they have to go all the way down. Let's go in, we are allowed. What is the story of Masada? How do we know about it? Well, we know from the books of Josephus Flavius, a Jewish historian that lived at the time, and he wrote a book about the history of the Jewish wars against the Romans. And he's telling us about King Herod that ruled the country about 2,000 years ago. King Herod was hated by the Jews. He was very cruel, even to his family, but he was a great builder. For example, he built the second temple, the Wailing Wall. He built the port town of Caesarea, and he needed a refuge because he was afraid from the people. So he also built Masada. Truly, he never came to live here, but this is the story about the mountain. 70 years later, the Jews uprised against the Romans. Jerusalem was conquered in the year 70 after the Common Era. The second temple was destroyed, and a bunch of rebels fled to the desert and conquered Masada. The Romans that heard about the place, especially they were caring about En-Gedi and Oasis, 20 kilometers from here, they surrounded the mountain, 8,000 warriors with many slaves that gave them the service. They built a wall all around the mountain. They built also a ramp that allowed them to break the wall with an iron ram and to conquer the place. The night before they came in, the commander of the place, Elazar ben Yair, gathered the people and told them, let's kill ourselves, let's not fall to the end of the Romans. That's the story of Masada. Let's go now and see what is the story of the archaeology. Does it match the stories that we know from the book? Look how many storehouses they have over here, 20 meters long each of them. And in the archaeological digging, they found jars of oil, of wheat, of dates. And this is one interesting story. They took one of the seeds of the date and planted it in the Arava. And today, when you are visiting in Kibbutz Ktorah in the Arava, you can see a palm tree that grew from the date, but the date was here 2,000 years ago. So you can see that there was plenty of storeroom and no problem of food over here on the mountain. Behind me, you can see one of more than a dozen cisterns, water reservoirs that were built on the mountain. Most of the water reservoirs were on the slope of the mountain, where they captured the flood water and channel it into the reservoirs. With donkeys, they brought the water up to the water gate, and from the water gate right down to those reservoirs on the top of the mountain. There was enough water to irrigate vegetables that they grew, fresh vegetables on the top of the mountain. Josephus Flavius mentioned a public bathhouse in the middle of the desert. Here is the bathhouse. You have a yard in front where people could do some gymnastic. After that you have a room to undress, and after that a cold room, a warm room, and the most interesting one is of course the hot room, the sauna. We are now in the Western Palace. This is not a regular house. Even in terms of our day, this is a palace. You can see the seat of the crown. There is a beautiful mosaic that was ruined by the zealots. They didn't need the mosaic, they didn't care for the mosaic, they care for the everyday life, and that's the reason they put a small wall to make a kitchen. This is one of the palaces that was mentioned by Josephus Flavius, and there is another one in the north side, a very, very magnificent place, made out of 3 steps. We are sitting right now in the synagogue. The synagogue is related not to King Herod time, but to the other period of the rebels. This is a big room, the largest that was found here. You can see that there are benches all around, which means that people gathered around here. You can see that there were pillars that hold the roof. This is quite large room for a roof, so they needed to have the support of pillars. And in the corner there is a room where they found scrolls from the Bible and from the book of Ezekiel. This is probably one of the most ancient synagogues that were found in the world. We can see here that the wall that surrounded the mountain, 1,400 meters of wall, was broke in a certain place. This is the place probably that the Romans broke in, and that was the night that Elazar ben Yair gathered the people and asked them to commit a suicide. I would like to conclude the visit in a room that was the place of the most exciting finding on the mountain. In 1965, the archaeologist KKL-JNF found here 10 pieces of clay with Hebrew names on it. You remember the story from Josephus Flavius? The last 10 people draw lot in order to find who will be the last one to kill the rest of them. And maybe those were the lots that were used, because one of the lot was the name of Ben Yair, the commander of the mountain. We will stay with a big question. Was the decision right or not? A big dilemma. We are a tiny country. We definitely don't have the highest mountain in the world, but at least we have the lowest place in the world. This is the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is about 10 times saltier than the regular ocean, about 34% of salt, and this creates a very unique situation. One can float on the water, even read a newspaper on the water while he's laying on it. And the Dead Sea is a combination of many other things. First of all, tourism. It's a very special place to visit and to experience. People know that the water and the mud of the Dead Sea can be very good for their skin, for example. So this is also a place to come to cure yourself This is also a big place for industry because the minerals like potassium, magnesium, and bromine are very important for fertilizer as well as for medicine. So in Israel and on the other side, in Jordan, there are big industries of carving those minerals from the sea. By the way, the south part of the sea, today more kind of ponds, big pools, where they carve those minerals, while the north side is the sea itself. And in the north side, you have a depth of about 200 meters, and here in this side, it's much, much shallower. Also, there is a beautiful oasis of En-Gedi, where you can walk in beautiful desert oasis, enjoy the sweet water, swim, and even drink the water. Up from the Dead Sea area to the valley of Arad, and with us Yaakov Bendor. Yaakov is a farmer on one end, and on the other end is the general manager of the winery of Yatir.
Hi Zev, I'm happy that you came to visit us in the valley of Arad. It's in so arid area, but you see that the desert bloom with the help of JNF that build the reservoir and now prepare to enlarge the reservoir 50% more water, and it's helped us to grow with the agriculture, and also we not pollute the rivers and the valleys of Judean desert.
Thank you very much. Let's have a look in the winery. To the Yatir winery, and the Yatir winery is very special. We are in a very, very arid area, and I don't know how you grow grapes around here.
Even though we don't get too much water, we get to irrigate the right amount of water to the grapes. You need to know that you cannot irrigate it too much, because then the fruit itself simply enlarges itself and loses some of its aroma. So the less water inside the grape, the better the wine would be. When you talk about producing wine, you always think about the soil where the grapes grow. So in our area, even if we grow grapes like Cabernet Sauvignon, like Merlot, like Shiraz, Petit Verdot, they would be distinct in their flavors and in their aromas than a winery that grows its vineyards up at the north.
Can we go and have a taste of the wine? It sounds so good.
Well, I agree with you. There's no way you would come to the winery and remain thirsty. So I'm pouring here Yatir Mount Amasa. It's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Shiraz, and Petit Verdot. It's aged for 1 year in oak, the oak that you've just seen. But it's called Amasa, Mount Amasa. That means it's our Cabernet. So it's really representing the desert mountain, the desert area, vines that have a different and a distinctive flavor, different than other places from the world. L'chaim.
Yatir, the northern Negev, less than 200 millimeters of rain, and Israel succeeded to plant here the biggest forest in Israel. About 10,000 acres of forest built out of pine trees, of cypress trees, of pistachio, different variety of trees, and in between in the valleys you have groves of cherries and vineyards and agriculture. Beautiful area that combine flowers, trees, picnic area, bike route, trails, archaeology, and even education with the camp of the Jewish National Fund Education Division. Foresters from all over the world come to learn how did we do it. There is a research station here, and we found out that the trees here changing CO2 to O2 exactly like trees in Europe. And don't forget, we are in the desert. So this is a unique situation, a beautiful area to come to enjoy in the northern Negev of Israel. Just arrived from the forest, the beautiful forest Miar Yatir. And it's quite amazing to see a nice forest that's growing in the desert. We can say that here everything starts.
Yes.
Okay, the forest of Israel, 250 million trees that were planted, started here.
Welcome to the Gilad nursery. There are three main nurseries in JNF. One in the north part, one in the central part, and here in Gilad is the biggest one with an area of 23 hectares. It's very, very big nursery and very wide varieties of plants we are growing here. We grow here about 80 different species of forest trees. We are talking about cypress, eucalyptus, pistacia, acacia. All the plants we are growing here, they are well adapted to our semi-arid or arid weather. Seed collection department is in charge to collect and supply the plants for all the nurseries of Israel, and they bring us varieties of or provenance of seeds. They are adapted to our area.
What does a plant need in order to survive in a climate like that?
To be the right species, very high quality we are producing here of the plants. Another important point is the morphology of the plants. For example, plants like acacia, they have a very small leaves, so they use very efficiently the water.
We saw in the forest over there, in Yatir,
Yes.
many pine trees.
Okay,
How come pine trees that grow in Europe, for example, grow also here in the desert?
because we are talking about different species of pine trees. We are growing the pine trees, they grow in Greece and in Turkey. They are well adapted for our area.
How do you know when a sapling is in a stage that you can provide it to be planted in the forest?
Okay, we start the plant production in the beginning of the spring, and the plants will be ready after about 6 to 8 months. We produce plants or by cuttings or by seedlings. This tree we start 6 months ago by seeds, and today is more than 1 meter tall. And you can see the root system, a very, very healthy root system.
And this tree will grow when you plant it
Yes,
without
yes.
extra water?
If we are talking about conifers, they don't supply additional irrigation in the forest. If we are talking about broadleaves like acacia or fruit trees like figs, etc., they irrigate 3 times in the first year, 2 times in the second year, 1 time in the third year, and after the fourth year, without irrigation. One of the reasons is the very high quality of root system. So that is one of the secrets of the success of the forest, the very high quality of the saplings we supply here, and the very good treatment they have in the forest.
You made Aliyah from
Yeah.
Argentina
Yes.
to Israel. You can hear it by your accent.
Yes.
Now you are responsible for so many of the trees that makes Israel green. How do you feel about that?
Very proud. When I go out from my house, I see the forest was planted after 1990. They are part of my kids. It's plants I grow from seeds or from cuttings, and I say, okay, I am responsible for this forest.
This is exciting. First of all, to know that you came all the way from Argentina to arid Israel, to dry Israel, and you changed the situation here. Amazing. Really, thank you very much.
Thanks to you.
Our last station for the second day will be here in this special place. This is an Ethiopian farm, ביתא ישראל. And with us, גאולה. מה קורה פה, גאולה?
אם אתה רוצה שאני אספר לך, בוא ניכנס לבית השמגלוש, שם נשתה בונה. בונה זה קפה אתיופי.
גאולה, אני חושב שאחרי היום הארוך שהיה לנו, התחלנו אותו במצדה בבוקר מוקדם, אני מוכן לשתות כוס קפה.
אז ברוך
ביי.
הבא.
This Ethiopian village is a very, very exciting place. All the story of the Ethiopian Jews is very exciting. Think about it. They were isolated in Ethiopia for many, many generations. Continue to observe the Jewish laws. Dream about Zion and Jerusalem. And after so many years, maybe 2,500 years, they had the chance to come to live with us in Israel. No one really knows how they arrived to Ethiopia. There are several traditions. You remember maybe the story about King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. There was a child, and the child took his friends and went back to Africa. Another tradition was that they are descendants of the tribe of Dan from the Bible. And another tradition said that after the destruction of the sovereignty of the Jews in this land, some communities moved to Alexandria in Egypt, and from there on the Blue Nile down to Ethiopia and to Yemen as well. This way or the other, they were isolated and dreamed to come back to Zion. And here they are with us. And let me ask Geula, were you born here or in Ethiopia?
אוקיי, אני נולדתי באתיופיה, בכפר יפהפה בצפון אתיופיה. עד גיל 8 חייתי באתיופיה, ובגיל 8 יצאתי עם הוריי ועם הקרובים שלי למסע. מסע ברגל, מפרך, מטלטל, ואחרי זה הגענו לסודן. ובסודן הייתי שנתיים מאוד קשות, ואחרי שנתיים עשיתי עוד מסע לארץ ישראל. המסע היה מאוד קשה, קושי פיזי ומנטלי, אבל במסע הזה גם איבדנו הרבה מיקירנו, כ4,000 תינוקות, נשים, מבוגרים שלא זכו להגיע לארץ ישראל. בזכותם אנחנו יכולים לספר פה על המסע האישי והמסע הקהילה. בזכותם אנחנו יכולים לעמוד ולספר את הסיפור הזה בארץ ישראל, אבל הם לא זכו להגיע לארץ ישראל.
I think that the journey is unbelievable story. Share with us, what is this village? What is this place?
אוקיי, אני אגיד לך מה הסיפור של הכפר. את הכפר הקימו 15 משפחות שהתגוררנו בקריית גת. היו לנו 3 מטרות מאוד חשובות שאני אמנה אותם כרגע. מטרה אחת היא לתת מקום תעסוקה למבוגרים אצלנו בקהילה. מה זה אדם מבוגר בקהילה האתיופית? אדם מבוגר בקהילה האתיופית הוא אדם מכובד, אדם עם ערכים, אדם שיחזיק את המשפחה, את הקהילה באתיופיה, אדם שיחזיק מפעל חיים. והאדם המבוגר הזה לוקח את הילדים הכי יקרים שלו ועושה את המסע. ובמסע הוא מאבד ילדים, אישה, הורים, אבל הוא לא אומר די. הוא אומר, אני רוצה להגשים את החלום. ואז הוא מגיע לארץ ישראל, ואז הוא מקבל את הסתירת לחם. אומרים בארץ ישראל, אתה אדם חלש, אדם לא מלומד, אתה תשב בצד, והילדים מתחילים להתחבר לתוך החברה הישראלית. והוא נשאר מאחורה, וככה חיינו 30 שנה. ואז אנחנו באנו, אמרנו, אנחנו צריכים להחזיר עטרה לא יושנה. אנחנו צריכים להחזיר את הכוחות והעוצמות שהיו להורים שלנו. אז לפני 12 שנה הקמנו את הכפר, ככפר חקלאי שנותן תעסוקה למבוגרים. לכל אחד יש חתיכת אדמה, מעבד את האדמה, זורע ולוקח את התוצרת הביתה. וזה יחזיר לו את הכבוד, את השורשים ואת החיבור המהותי בתוך הבית. בזכות החקלאות הוא נהיה לאדם משמעותי בתוך הבית הגרעינית שלו. לא רק המבוגרים באים לפה, גם הילדים, הנכדים, המשפחה המורחבת. מטרה שנייה זה הילדים שלנו שנולדים פה בארץ, או שבאו בגיל מאוד צעיר. ואנחנו, השאיפה שלנו, שהנוער שלנו, שהילדים שלנו, יחזרו לשורשים שלהם ויהיו גאים במי שהם, בצבע שלהם. מטרה שלישית היא שהחברה הישראלית לא מכירה את יהודי אתיופיה. והשאיפה שלנו היא שהחברה הישראלית תחליף משקפיים אחרות ותראה פה שיש פה קהילה ייחודית, ציונית, ושהגיעה לארץ ישראל ועשתה מסע מאוד קשה, ולא רק זה, אלא הביאה איתה גם תרבות ומורשת כה עשירה והיסטוריה עתיקה בת 2,500 שנה, וזה יכולה להיות מתנה לחברה הישראלית ולעם היהודי כולו. מה אנחנו עושים בתוך הכפר? באים לפה כ-20,000 מבקרים בשנה, והם אומרים כל מיני סדנאות, כמו כתיבה באמרית שהם כותבים את השם, או יצירה בחמר, שהם עושים את זה תוצרת ולוקחים הביתה, מחול אתיופי, בנייה אקולוגית, בנייה בוץ, המטבח האתיופי, כדי להכיר את המטעמים שיש בתוך המטבח האתיופי, וככה יכולים להיחשף לתרבות שונה וללמוד ממנה.
It's the end of the second tour. We started early morning in Masada after the uprising and the destruction. Many communities spread all over the world. Many of them came back to the state of Israel today. And here we are with the Ethiopian Jews who came from Ethiopia and live with us here in Israel. Our group will continue tonight to sleep in Tel Aviv. Have a good night, and we will meet in the next tour in the center of Israel.